Hi, I'm Ashley Vitarelli with Blackburn TV. It is so nice to meet all of you. So I'd like to start with Ismael. So I'm wondering what drew you to your character and what you enjoyed most about portraying him.
Well, what drew into my character was there's so many layers to the guy. You know, there is such dignity. There's something always behind his eyes, and he's a warrior led by the heart. You know, there's not any amount of obstacle that is going to make him shrink, or any amount of fear that he may experience that is going to make him stop to use that love as a guiding light. And that's what drew me to him. I feel very identified in my own personal life in that way. You know, my journey through life has had plenty of obstacle from, you know, growing up quite poor and disenfranchised and feeling invisible and voiceless, traversing through life, wanting to change that for my people to be visible, and so many obstacles. Put my way through college, was homeless for like 5 years from couch to couch, still with the guiding light of like those who I loved and those who I cared for. And then that led me to Aronde, and there was very little that I had to do. I did plenty of research and preparation, but there was truly very little that I needed to reach for. I felt very recognized by him in the page, and I kind of vowed since that first time that I was going to be the one who played him. And here we are.
Here we are. Absolutely. That is such a great story. Thank you for sharing that with me. And then for Nazanin, so the show is so visually and aesthetically stunning, from the locations and set design to the costumes and lighting and everything in between. What was it like to act in such a complete and creative space like that?
I mean, it's transformative. It transports you to where you need to be. The attention to detail on our sets was like nothing I've ever experienced. I've been on big sets before, never like anything like this. And, you know, even things that probably won't end up on camera are made to perfection around you so that you're completely immersed. And from costume to set direction and art direction and everything around you is immersive. So in that sense, I mean, the production value, and we keep talking about the cost of this show, but to me, the most important thing is production value. How much of that money do you see, you know, in the final product? And I can tell you it's the production value is extraordinary.
Absolutely. I mean, just in the 2 episodes I saw, it was absolutely evident that so many people put so much hard work, and it looks to have absolutely paid off. And then for Ben, so seeing as this show expands the world of Lord of the Rings, I'm curious what you are most excited for fans of the world of the Lord of the Rings to see when this show comes out in September?
Well, I mean, it's unfair to say there's the fans and then there's us, and because we are fans. Mm-hmm. If anything, I want to pacify them and to reassure them that we approach it with the same love and respect that it deserves, and that though there are a lot of new elements, the foundation of the show is Tolkien, and we love it as much as they love it, and we hope they're as excited to see it as we are to share it with them.
Definitely, yeah. And then my next question is for Tyro. So this show is going to be huge. People are talking about it everywhere. And I'm curious, what was it like to have one of your first big television roles be in such a marvelous capacity like this show?
I mean, I've said this before, but it's like, you know, with the experience that I'd already had and then jumping into like being in the main cast of a big television series, it's like being, you know, you could say I was thrown into the deep end, but like, with the Lord of the Rings, I was thrown into the Marianas Trench. Like it's something huge. No, I had a great support circle. I was there with my mother, and you know, you guys all were there for me, and kept me grounded and kept my head down, and I didn't get distracted with everything. So, you know, I had my life jacket and I was floating and felt supported, and I'm really, really grateful that I'm here.
And then for Ismael, I'm curious, do you have a favorite memory from filming?
From filming, the thing is that I had such an amazing time on and on and on and on. I think I have a favorite memory of right before filming, and I think it was the first time that I saw the Southlands, where our storyline happens, and I got dropped off maybe like an hour before, There were no cameras. There was no crew. It was just like two of us waiting for the team to come. And I got to walk around this world that they built for us and really feel this fantasy and really feel that I was in Lord of the Rings. And I walked up a hill where there was another little house because it was so intricately built. You know, I stood in the balcony kind of growing taller and taller, and like the brush was moving, and I was just like, hell yeah, you know, that kind of thing. And it very and it just the feeling of pride of like, here we go, this is our home. I loved it.
That is such a cool moment. Probably kind of like a pinch me moment a little bit.
It was every day one of those.
Yeah.
That's so great. And then I'm running out of time, but I'm curious if Nazanin, Tyro, and Ben, quickly, do you have a favorite memory or a favorite time from when you like found out you booked the role, something like that?
Mine was on top of a mountain. Ismail and I got to film on top of a mountain. We had to take helicopters to get up there because it would have been a 4-day hike otherwise. And you can't help but think you're in Middle Earth in that setting.
What you got?
I think just New Zealand in general was a great memory. It's such a beautiful country, and to be there during a time when no one else could go anywhere. I think if you want to be trapped anywhere in the world, I think that's where you want to be trapped. So especially with these people, and we got to experience some really, really, really beautiful things.
And some of the pinch me moments, the show is enormous. The infrastructure that it takes to make it is enormous. But in spite of that, some of my favorite moments were where you're just standing there with your collaborators trying to milk the magic out of these scenes, almost like you're in a college film or an independent movie, some kind of guerrilla shooting where it's all hands on deck and you're united by this singular vision. Mm-hmm. And that's rare in any context, much less on a show this big.
So true.
Yeah, definitely. That's a great answer. And the community of talented creatives was so evident on screen. And that is unfortunately all the time I have. But it was so great to meet with you all and speak with you. Thank you so much for your time. And huge congrats again on the show.
Thank you. Thanks for watching it.
So my first question is for Sarah. Can you tell us a little bit about your character and what attracted you to the role?
So my character is Marigold Brandyfoot. She's in the Halffoot tribe. She's a matriarch. She is very loving. Her main focus is her family and her community. She's also quite tough. She has very solid ideas about how things should be done. She really embraces the way of life that her Halffoot tribe has lived for generations and wants that to continue, but she's facing a challenge, a bit of a challenge to that when we start the season, as you've seen.
Yes, definitely. And then for Markella, as a viewer of the show, I was just so mesmerized watching it, which of course comes from the dedicated hard work of so many creatives, both in front of the camera and behind the camera. And I'm wondering if you could speak to just what the filming process was like in such a creative space.
I mean, it was quite incredible. Thank you for that question. It's a great question. I think I really felt quite fortunate in the sense that it really was like what you see on screen is the work of just thousands of people brought to life, and everyone had already laid like the foundation, through costume and makeup and dialect and movement, that I could just be a vessel for their work, really. So it was a really creative workspace, and you could really feel that when you were on set. I really felt that on set, and we were filming so much on location as well, so the environment really was like a character in a way. And so, yeah, I think it went from kind of talking about the story and fleshing it out in rehearsals and in our homes, and then being able to bring that to the space of a set, both creative in their own ways, for them to like meet in the middle was amazing.
And then for Megan, sort of going off of Markella's question, what was it like to work with such an incredibly talented cast?
I mean, it's wonderful. We're very fortunate. We all really get on. Mm-hmm. And the nice thing about, the Halffoot community is that they are a community. And while we were working, we became a community of actors too. And so I really hope that bond that is there between us is reflected through the scenes and on screen. But it's so nice to be surrounded by a team of people who want the same thing, which for all of us, I think, is to service the story and to do all of our characters justice, and not just from obviously from, you know, our own point of view of our own characters, but also to service all of the other characters within that story too. Everyone is so giving, and, you know, there would be moments when, you know, I wouldn't even be in a scene with somebody, or like someone wouldn't even be in a scene with me rather, and they would just offer their presence, and they'd be like, do you need me? Would you like me to be there because we're doing this thing in the background? Would that help you to give you context for where you are? So it was a very, like, extremely well-rounded experience, and it was very immersive. And I also think that the space that was created was so safe, and that was done by the incredible crew. And, you know, the showrunners and all of our directors as well. So it was a really nice community to be a part of.
Certainly, yeah. It sounds like a really, really special group of people all working together. And then, yes. And then for Sarah, I'm curious, what do you hope that fans of the Lord of the Rings world will take away from watching the show?
Well, I mean, there's so much to connect to in Tolkien's work and in the world of the Rings of Power. So I hope that everyone will find something that really moves them, that makes them think, that connects them to the themes of Tolkien's work, which is of the human condition. And I also hope that they have fun and they get all the joy. I mean, particularly the Half-Wits, we're all about joy and laughter as much as we're about survival. So I hope that they take that away as well.
Definitely. I'm sure they will. I know I definitely did. And then, Markella, what was it like to be part of the continuation of such an iconic and beloved world by fans everywhere?
I think, well, because I was a fan myself. I was a fan of the books and I was a fan of the films. And so to be able to be part of something, just a new series that has such respect for Tolkien's lore as well, and the showrunners have such a respect for that and kind of for those stories. And so to be able to be a part of it was incredibly surreal. And I think, you know, it was important for me personally not to really focus on how loved it is, and because for me it's just the approach to the work stays the same regardless of any external noise or any expectation. It's just kind of doing it and hopefully portraying it as truthfully as possible. So but yeah, it was very exciting.
I'm sure. And then Megan, my last question is for you. I'm curious if you have a favorite memory from filming or from when you found out you booked the role or anything like that.
A memory that's really stuck with me was the first time that I saw the set. We worked on location a lot of the time, and one of the locations was just on a farm, on somebody's private farm, but they had like a forest that we filmed in, and that was sort of where you see the Half-Foot encampment. And I remember walking in, and I wasn't filming on this day, we were just having a set visit, but there was a rehearsal going on with all of our background artists who were the community of the Half-Foots, and they were in the middle of doing a sort of like a movement sequence that had been like created and developed by our movement director Lara, and I just remember they were all in costume and hair and makeup, and that being able to walk onto a literal alive set was so incredible. And I just felt immediately immersed in it, and I was immediately like, I've really wanted, let's do this. I'm really excited, and it was very much like, okay, this is real, this is a thing, and this is Middle Earth, and it was so transporting.
That sounds so cool and exciting, and probably a little surreal too.
Yeah, absolutely, it was.
And it has been so lovely speaking with all of you. Unfortunately, I am out of time, but it has been just a great time chatting with all of you. Huge congratulations again.
Thank you so much. So nice to talk to you.
So I'd like to start with Emma. So I'm hoping you can speak a bit about your character and in what ways you are similar to your character and in what ways you're different.
Yes, she's Eärien is her name, and she is the baby of a very, in a very famous family. Her oldest brother is Isildur, who's obviously famous from the movies and the books, and middle brother is Anarion, and her father is Elendil, one of the great heroes in Tolkien's works. And she's very creative and artistic. She wants to be an architect. And she's very ambitious and quite capable. However, her family's kind of dealing with the loss of their mother. And Anarion has run off to the other side of the island in response. And my oldest brother is threatening to do the same. So she's kind of stressed and trying to keep the family together while also focusing on her own ambition. How are we similar? I drew a lot when I was a kid, and grew up in a family where I'd several family members had great eyes for beauty. And working on this, I got to draw for 3 hours a week with Daniel Reeve, who created Bilbo Baggins' handwriting. And that was just such a gift because I was actually paid to draw again. And it's sort of, yeah, that's my favorite sort of similarity. And then how are we different? Was that part of the question? Or
Yes.
How are we different? I think I'm more of a thinker than a doer, and she does things when she's got a problem. I sort of sit in the misery of them. So yeah, that's how we're different.
You're both very smart. Intimidatingly smart. Not true.
Awesome answer. And then my next question is for Lloyd. I'm curious what you enjoyed most about portraying your character and what initially attracted you to the role.
It's a great question. I guess they're combined in the sense that what's the way JD and Patrick have set him up at the beginning. Yes, he's this hero archetype. Yes, people who have read The Lord of the Rings hear him referenced, and all the characters indeed think of him as a hero, particularly Aragorn, obviously. So there's a connection to him. But then the great privilege of the job is to start opening him up and actually discovering the three-dimensional human being that we don't know who Elendil is in terms of what Tolkien has written about him. There are certain signposts along the way and suggestions by his action of self-sacrifice at the end. So who is he? And I think, what particularly attracted to me about how it's set up at the beginning and where we might take him is the battle that we all have as human beings between our head and our heart, what our instinct might be telling us to do, what our rationale might counter, and that ongoing struggle that we all have to try and work out what the right thing to do is with the myriad of choices that are presented to us every day. Some are simple and some are deeply emotionally complex, and I think that emotion has been put into this role by the family dynamic, having lost his wife and the children lost their mother, and the turbulence that causes within their world, and how it's reflected in Númenorian society, and Elendil is sucked into that political sphere, but also trying to keep his family safe. So he's struggling with a lot of decisions, and he doesn't necessarily have the political nous or emotional capability to deal with them at all times.
Absolutely. Yeah. Great answer. And then my next question is for Maxim. So I'm curious, can you describe the moment when you first put on your costume and got to walk on set or on location for the first time?
Yeah, I had a few costume fittings for it with Kate Hawley, and I think what was really lovely about the way that she worked was her attention to detail. And I remember something that's not even in the show much is that he has a necklace that his mother gave him when he was a kid. And I think that just kind of his connection to his childlike self was something that kind of transported me into that whole world. The Isildur, who's very alone, I think, in the first season, and who kind of yearns for some love and attention from, not from you, I guess not from you either, just from his mum, And I think that sense of loss and grief is just constant with him. And I think when I put that on for the first time, and I remember being in the Coromandel in New Zealand on a beach, and that just initial kind of sense of the character was just there straight away as soon as I put the clothes on. Yeah.
That's awesome. That is so cool. And then for Leon, I'm curious, what is it like for you to be a part of the continuation of such an iconic and beloved world and series?
It has been surreal from beginning to, it hasn't really ended. We're still doing it. We're still talking about it. But these guys all know I'm a New Zealander. I grew up in Wellington. So Middle Earth has been inescapable as long as I can remember. When I was in primary school, Peter Jackson was making his original trilogy, everyone knew somebody who worked on it. Everyone knew that the scale was unusual. And then when the thing came out, it was a huge source of national pride. And then when I was at drama school, still in Wellington, he was making The Hobbit. So again, a lot of people were in town working on this thing. And we kind of took on that mantle of Middle Earth. New Zealand was, inextricably connected to Tolkien. So then to be inside one of these stories, it was something that I think I'm still processing. I had never considered myself particularly useful in one of these stories. I had an idea about who a Tolkienian character was or was not. And when I saw these scripts and what Patrick and JD had teased out, I found a home for myself and a place to be of service, I would say. And I've really enjoyed getting on board. It has been such a wild ride, and I hope it continues.
Thank you all so much for chatting with me. It was so great to speak with all of you, and huge congrats again on the show. So my first question is for Sophia. So I'm wondering what drew you to your character and what you enjoyed most about bringing her to life.
I think what drew me to her is that she feels like a perfect medley of relatability in her kind of domestic life. She's a mother, she's a wife, she's got a bit of joy, she likes to cook. There's just this kind of relatableness to her, which I love. But equally, she is a formidable, gifted dwarf, and she is holds magical powers, really, I like to think, in her resonating, and she uses her voice through song to literally move mountains. And so it kind of extends a life that I live to a place to a fantasy world, and I sort of have to dare to dream with her and to push all of the boundaries of self-worth and strength and love that I've never really had to play before. And so I love to kind of explore with her. She's very confident and unapologetically brilliant. So yeah.
Definitely, yeah. And then for Owen, as a viewer, the show is so powerful to watch, which I imagine is absolutely reflective of an equally powerful shoot. I'm curious what the filming process and experience was like, just being a part of such an imaginative and immersive world and set.
Yeah, do you know what? The set is a star of the show for certain. And I'll never forget one day when we were shooting down in Khazad-dûm, and we were just resetting a shot. So I was just stood waiting, and Rob was doing the same, and he was up on an apple box, and there were like 50 dwarves around him. And it just dawned on me that I was in Lord of the Rings, that was Middle Earth. And I actually kind of had a voice in my head saying, oh my God, I'm in Lord of the Rings. But shooting it was a challenge, but a joyful challenge, if you like. The having to act with prosthetics and a very big beard was a discipline I had to learn very quickly, and also doing the scale work that we had to do together was we learnt on the job, basically, didn't we? There were many methods that were geared up to get the best performance out of us all. So we were very fortunate to have a great technical team and lovely people of New Zealand too.
Definitely, yeah. The show, I mean, just as a viewer, it looked like it was a labor of love of so many talented people. And it was definitely evident.
Blood, sweat, and tears went into making it.
Absolutely. Yeah. And then for Robert, so your character Elrond was previously portrayed by Hugo Weaving in the Lord of the Rings films. Can you speak to what it was like to bring the character to life in your own way?
Yeah. I was just really excited about the idea of what it is to be half elven, really, and what it is to be an orphan, what it is to have a complicated relationship with your past. And actually with Charlie, we shoot some cool scenes where we get to talk about and with Owen too, actually, and stuff too. We shoot like where we can talk about his family and where he comes from. And I think all that stuff is great to know because it's kind of the central wound inside of him right now. He's closer to his famous past than he is to his incoming famous future, you know. So it was just really good to begin him in a place where he's young, where he's different, and where he's trying to make his way.
Definitely, yeah. And then my next question is for Charles. I'm curious, what was it like for you to be a part of the continuation of such an iconic and beloved world?
It was very thrilling, and particularly when I found out who the part was that I would be playing, because the auditions occasionally, some of us were, some of us weren't. I wasn't aware of the part that I was auditioning for. And I got the part, but I still didn't know what the part was. And a couple of weeks later, I was told what the part was. Mm-hmm. So, and I looked him up. I said, "How do you spell that?" And she told me. And then I looked him up and found out who he is and what he does. And that was a really exciting moment for me. And I've read Tolkien, and when I was younger, I was very, very into it, but I'd never heard of my guy, Celebrimbor, nor did I know that he created the designs on the doors of Durin at Khazad Dûm. I never knew that. Moria, I never knew that. And that when it all lights up in when Gandalf can't figure out the password, those doors, I designed them.
Yeah, you did.
Yeah. So cool. That is so cool. And I'm sure a really pleasant surprise after the end of a hard audition process. You find out who you're playing, and it's an awesome
that was a happy day.
Definitely, I'm sure. And it has been so great speaking with all of you, but unfortunately I am out of time. I want to thank you so much for speaking with me. I really loved every second of it, and huge congrats again on the show.
Thank you very much. Thank you so much.
So, to start with Morpeth, your character was portrayed by Cate Blanchett in the Lord of the Rings films. What was it like for you to both continue the legacy of the character, but also to portray her in your own way?
I discovered that the serenity and wisdom that we see in Galadriel of the Third Age is hard-earned. And that also the elves, Middle-earth spans thousands of years, and the Third Age is the third. And the first and second come before. Sorry. And the elves were very messy and very catty to each other. And so that was really interesting to explore because I had no idea about that. I also was she's young, but she's younger, but she's not young, she's thousands of years old already. And so I was trying to figure out what could be her idea of naivety. How naive could she ever be? And kind of a clicking moment for me was that to an elf, I think naivety is arrogance because they haven't learned humility to a degree or their limits. And that also she's more innocent because she's going to see some terrible things. And it was nice to know that she'll end up happy in Lothlorien.
Yes, a nice kind of thing to keep in the back of your mind. Yeah. And then for Charlie, I'm curious what it was like for you to walk on set or the location for the first time in costume and just be completely immersed in the world of Lord of the Rings.
It was amazing. Our first sequence was on the raft in the Sundering Seas. That was the first time I was on set. So it sort of threw me right into it, where I didn't really have time to think about the fact that it was my first week or whatever. I just had to deal with not falling in, paddling the raft from here 5 meters over there without falling in.
My next question is for Tristan. So what did you enjoy most about portraying your character, and what initially attracted you to the role?
What initially attracted me to the role? I would have played a corpse in this, by the way, face down in the mud with 2 arrows sticking out of my back. So it's not so I went, yeah, I'll do it. No, it was a huge honor, to grab hold of the baton and carry the torch, I guess, in the Tolkien verse. What I liked most about portraying my character, I think, is as simple as the rings. I've got a black pearl ring. And I quite liked fiddling with that, to be quite honest. Simple things like that, yeah.
And you have to hold on to them because it's all too big. Sometimes you just have to focus on that tiny thing.
Yeah.
Perfect. And then for Morpeth, what do you hope that fans of Lord of the Rings world will take away from watching this show?
For me, I've always found huge respite in fantasy. And I think it's really helped me kind of actually get through my life. But I think also it offers different options for other worlds. I think often fantasy has stopped me being so cynical and made me realize that things can be different and things can be better. And I think something I particularly love about Lord of the Rings is that the world doesn't work unless every creature in that world is safe and thriving. And then I also think this is a really, there are characters in this that are hugely different to each other, and there's many, many characters. So I hope that kind of, say, for example, young people watching it, there's many different options of who they can be, who they can become. They'll be seeing themselves in fantasy in a way that they wouldn't necessarily have done before, because this is a diverse cast, it's a global cast. And ultimately, I just hope it brings people some magic.
I absolutely think it will. I definitely got that just from watching the 2 episodes that I did. And then I'm curious for Charlie and Tristan, do both of you have a favorite memory from filming?
I think there's lots of points where I had to stop and look around and be like, I can't believe this is what we're doing. There was one riding a horse through some trees, through a wood, and looking around and seeing people chasing you on motorbikes and stuff. Not in the show. Yeah. There's no motorbikes in Middle Earth, but chasing you, filming, and that was pretty surreal for me.
I think for me, there's one where I've got a scene with a lovely actor called Ken Blackburn, who plays Tar Palantir, who is the actual king of Númenor, who's ill at the moment. And that was a lovely, lovely day, listening to all his stories from his incredible life, from his incredible career. Yeah. It was wonderful. It was inspirational.
I'm sure. Yes, absolutely. I am so excited for everyone to get a chance to see this show. I absolutely loved it. It was so great speaking with you all. Thank you so much for your time.